I saw you guys in the early 80s, and I wanted to ask you, as Mtume as a band, I know I got a chance to see you, but did you guys actually tour that much? Because you were so busy in the studio.
No, we didn't. We didn't because of the production activity. I mean, we may be doing like 4 or 5 projects a year, man. And we got it. For those that don't know, I'll take them back. Back in those days, a producer was the producer. It wasn't like there's 13 tracks and 17 producers. You know what I mean? And there was a certain continuity that records had, just like the soundtracks. I mean, why does Shaft sound like it does? Why does Superfly? I mean, because there's a continuity of sound, and I think that's one of the things that's lacking today. You got 30 producers, man, and you used to be able to put an album. Look, we spent time even dealing with the sequencing of the songs. Like, well, what feels like it should flow? But today, you got a bunch of people. They all bring their song and then they flap it. Scotch tape it together, man. And I'm not saying these aren't great producers, but I do miss the chemistry of a mindset.
Oh yeah, the continuity and the flow. I mean, those. Yeah. That's when it's a real work of
P-Funk. I mean, it's a flow,
cohesive art.
Yes.
Yeah. But when I saw you guys in the early 80s, I really enjoyed it because it was part of like one of those funk fests.
Oh, okay.
And it was really fun when you guys did Hip Dip Skip the Beat.
Oh man, yeah.
With like the silhouette.
Oh, you had the screen. You saw us when we had the screen.
Yeah, and the dancer, and he would start getting the beat, and he was like a character. Right. It was kind of like your guys, Sir Nose Devoid of Funk or something.
Right, yeah. It was a brother named Zarkov. One day I was walking down Times Square, and the whole breakdance thing was just not, whatever he was doing was just coming in the flow. I saw him, man. I said, man, would you like to go on tour? And he was like, he's a street dancer, but he was so important in terms of the overall texture and tapestry that I wanted to present. Also, we probably was the first R&B band to ever use rappers. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde on the Breathless album, I think it is. It's a song in there called Deep Freeze. And one of the guys was Andre Harrell.
Oh, okay.
Who now became a great CEO of record company. That's the first time an R&B band had ever done a song, to my knowledge, with rappers. We always tried to hear what the next thing was.
So when you were putting those records together, were you intentionally trying to make them, varied? We're gonna have this many mid-tempo, or this one's funky, this one's a ballad. How'd you put them together?
I don't think I was that much into the design as much as that's just how it flowed. I mean, the one thing I did like doing was a reprise on records, like, with Juicy Fruit. At the end of the album, there's something called the After Six mix.
Mm-hmm.
You, Me, and He. At the end of that album, there's the monogamy mix, where there's this conversation between his husband and wife. But I didn't think of it, like, okay, I got to write 2 ballads here because I love ballads, But like I said, I know what my time zone is. You, Me, and He was a ballad,
Yeah,
a different kind of subject matter, but it was a ballad.
So, and I think you coined that term Sophistafunk.
Sophistafunk, right? Yes.
Yeah. So that was sort of, well, what elements to you make Sophistafunk?
I came out of jazz. So there's a certain influence of chords. I mean, you listen to the Closer. One of the things that makes that different, the chord progressions. I mean, not that they're way out, they're simplistic, but it's a jazz. There's a texture in that of jazz. What you gonna do with my lovin'? There's a ding, it's just a little jazzy, but in the context of R&B and funk, because right under that is that thing, you know what I mean? So that's what I call it, Sophistafunk. I mean, the orchestration was very plush. You know how to love me and all that, but under that, man, there's a groove, man.
Mm-hmm. I heard you say that for Juicy Fruit, you wanted to you went to the laboratory and you wanted to try to see how much could you strip away and still make it a groove and all that. So can you talk about that?
Well, that creative process a little bit? I give you the biggest story from that album. Okay, Tuatha's on tour with Roxy Music. She's in Europe. We're in there, you know, we had finished the album, the tracks. She has a couple of days off because I wrote Juicy Fruit after the album was finished. I was just like, I was in the studio. I forgot what, I mean, the session was over. The cats had went home. And there was a Lynn drum machine sitting there. And I remember back then on R&B, nobody was using a drum machine. So I said, well, I told the engineer, man, we'll hook that up. So I'm messing around with it. So I come up with this, which is actually a conga beat. And so he said, okay, let's quantize it. I said, no, man, it's a little off. I want to humanize it. Don't make it perfect, because then that ain't this. Mm-hmm. So I thought about it, called the guys back. They come back like 1 and 2 in the morning. We laid the track. I called T. She's off for a couple of days. She's in London. She flies back. Now, that laboratory, I decided, and I don't know if there was any album done like this before this, there's no reverb on nothing. So she's trying to, nothing, no keyboards, no drums, no nothing. So Tuatha comes in, and I mean, very correctly, she tells me, I can't sing to this because it's flat. So I said, okay. So our compromise was, I said, you're right. So I said, you record, I'll put reverb on it so you can record it. I said, then we'll take it off when we mix it. She said, cool. So that was the funny story. She couldn't sing it because it was, I understand. A singer can't sing when it's just flat. It's like crazy. It's like you're in a chamber. But that album, again, you want a story? That album, they didn't want to release Juicy Fruit. First concern they had was, you know, the lyric was a little risque back then. And that means nothing now.
That was Epic, right?
Label? Yeah, Epic. No. So they thought I had lost it. Actually, they wanted me to go in and redo another album with a producer. Now, I'm pissed. Like, are you kidding? One thing I knew about Juicy Fruit, man, I knew it was different. And the one thing you know about something different, either people will get it or they won't. So their compromise to me was, okay, we ain't gonna release it for daytime. We're only releasing it for nighttime. So it only was released for those after 12 shows, you know, the midnight hour. After 1 week, the record company was getting so many calls. And one of the comments was from one of the program directors, this is the only song we've ever played where people know the song by the beat before anything is sung or played, just that beat. And I'm not going to pretend that I knew that beat would be that historic, but that wasn't the hippest thing in the song to me. I thought the chords was like, oh, dig these changes. But people determine what's valued. And they said, no, the beat.
Well, it's the beat. I mean, it's all of it, but the beat and also the way Tuatha lays back in it.
Oh, man, come on, man. It's all of that. And you can't in any way diminish the vocal performance, because that's the tip of every iceberg. I don't care how good your song is. If it's a lame vocal performance, and it ain't happening. I don't care how good the vocalist is if it's a lame track. You know, lame is lame. Okay.
So that was 83. So it's right in the same period. You know, I'm thinking you mentioned about the Lynn drum. You know, it's right around the same time when like Prince really came in with it, and also with the risque stuff. So I think between Juicy Fruit and Prince, that really kind of was a big trend or a big breakthrough that year.
Yeah, I do. That's a great point. I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There was like some breaking out of what was considered risque. But the most dangerous song, when I say dangerous, I don't mean in a literal sense, but the song that got the most visceral response was You, Me, and He. I remember after we did that album, there was a bar we went to that was close to the recording studio. So the record was out, and we went to this bar because the guy who ran the bar, a guy named Niels, he was a great cook, and he was Southern, you know, so you have all this Southern cuisine. And we'd always go. So I went in there to get something to eat one night, and he said, Mtume, you just missed it 20 minutes ago. I said, what? He said, I had to call the police. He said, a guy jumped on his woman because she kept playing You, Me, and He And he said, "You trying to tell me something?" No, that unnerved a lot of guys.
Wow.
Yeah, you know, because they're used to hearing the love triangle, but the other way.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
I met this woman at the shoe store, yeah, but whatever. But
yeah.
for a guy to have to digest it, you know, and the lyrics are very clear what the dynamics are.
Did you play that one live much?
Oh yeah, every set. That was like, I would say, our best tour. We was out for about 7 months with Kashif, and that was a great chemistry.
Mm-hmm. So you had that great success. I mean, how did your life change when that became such a big hit? You know, you got probably the most fame and recognition you'd ever had, right?
Yeah. But remember what I told you. I'm sorry, you're not finished. Go ahead.
No, I was just asking how your life kind of changed when you got that level of success and fame.
Well, I mean, look, economically it allowed you to do obviously a few things, but you have to remember, with me, my standards were very different. I'm coming from, my musical influences is Coltrane, Miles, Dizzy Gillespie, you know what I mean? Charlie Parker, Lester Young. So I never felt, even to this day, I've done anything relative to what you looked up to, the shoulders you stood on, you know what I mean? And, you know, one of the things I always have problems with when people say, the genius of so-and-so. No, man, I've been around genius. I know what that is. And I'm nowhere near that, nor have I ever pretended to be. But I've been exquisitely gifted to have had a career that spanned a lot of different, look, I was a side man, a musician, became a songwriter, became a producer, began to compose for TV and television. I mean, but how do I compare that to Kind of Blue? Okay? Or Bitches Blue, you just don't. So you never look at yourself, or I have it, as success that way. No. There's always something to climb.
Yeah. So why did you decide to burn that Mtume bridge, I guess, and kind of go on to something else in the mid-'80s?
Well, the music was changing. Remember, at this point, rap and hip hop was coming on strong. And I always also believe you got to know when to leave the stage. Okay? Always know how to leave before your audience does. Okay? And as a result of that, I wasn't feeling that as something that I could do musically. And also, I was watching another phenomenon. The video, MTV, became this whole other thing with black music in particular. You know, I mean, remember before Sony threatened to take all their videos off of MTV, they refused to play any black artists. So Michael Jackson, Billie Jean is the first black video. Okay, you can't even imagine that these days. But that's how crazy it was. And in the videos, and this is something that very few people talk about, but I talk about it, R&B artists and at many times and at many points were doing videos that didn't reflect their audience. And I always said, why is it always incumbent on black artists to have to cross over? From what to what? Nobody says Rolling Stones got to cross over to R&B charts. So we always stayed true to our audience. Now, look, anybody who loves our music, look, we love that. But, you know, my audience and our audience was basically R&B, which was primarily black. And a lot of other hip white kids who were watching, probably you were one, you know, it's like, but I didn't see a whole bunch of black people in a Billy Joel video. Why should there be? But the video and the compromise, and also skin tone for the women, the lead women. You know, my youngest daughter, who's chocolate, one day we were watching the video show and a Prince video came on, and she said, I guess I can't be in a video. And I knew what she was saying. Like, wow, that's right. Because all these other things that people weren't thinking about were began to influence black music. And it wasn't, I mean, look, you didn't have to see Sly Stone to feel, you know, thank you for letting me be myself. You didn't have to see Al Green you know, but now you were selling brands and product, not the legitimacy of the music, how you looked. And it began to change.
It changed big. I mean, it gets my blood boiling because when the music was everything to me. And the way MTV just, segregated.
And I heard David Bowie challenge him. It was a great, but it was years ago. He was doing an interview and he said, "Why do you not play any black video?" And it was like, the MTV host was like, in chat, but all the English cats were super hip. So I wanted to finish this point. So when we did the video for Juicy Fruit, first of all, most songs weren't getting videos, R&B songs. We were on the road, flew in for a day, shot it, and left. Now, the lead, a female in that video, was kind of Asian looking. I mean, I don't think like that. Didn't matter. But when I heard young black girls say, "Man, if I'm dark, I can't be in the video," we made it a point when we did You, Me, and He to have a dark-skinned sister just for representation, because it was getting ridiculous. And then some of the funk was getting watered down. You know what I mean? It was a bad period.
Big time, the funk got watered down. So many black artists back then were told they sounded too black, or it was crazy.
Now nobody sounded too white, but you can be accused of sounding too black.
Yeah, I mean, hip hop
nobody said that to Wham, George Michael.
You can sound whiter than that.
Right.
So all right, so you got into scoring and film and all that good stuff. How did that kind of scratch your itch in terms of your artistic sensibility?
I will say this to you. Of everything I've been fortunate enough to participate in and accomplish, scoring New York Undercover is my greatest joy for this reason. At that time, there was no black composer for television doing a dramatic series. You had a couple cats doing some comedies, but I thought New York Undercover was a groundbreaking show. Had an urban backdrop, African-American and a Latino lead, and just the whole show, Natalie's, that feature, where I would bring in a young artist and have them redo a classic. So Mary J. Blige comes in, and then she does Natural Woman, or I bring B.B. King, you doing a Thriller's going, and it was a chance for me to put our sound on television in a way that it had never been, because I scored the whole show. Even the theme was different,
Now, did you get any Emmy? Do they do music for the Emmys?
I said I was the only black guy doing it. No. An Emmy. I don't know if I got an enema. Okay. No. I mean, the people knew. Yeah. People loved that show, and many over the years have told me how sometimes they would just lay to see who I would have in Natalie's, or just to hear the music. There was nothing like that. The only thing I equate that show with was the show of Miami Vice. I felt Miami Vice was groundbreaking musically. Hans Zimmer, he brought some other stuff, and I think what I was able and fortunate enough to do on New York Undercover had never been done. I mean, I'm producing songs. None of those Natalie scenes were songs. I reproduced all those records, and I'm scoring the whole show, in the basement.
So, did that have you just crazy busy, or how did you
man, the first couple of years, easy, man, I was doing 18 hours, because the first year I had to figure out what's my sound gonna be. What because like I said, that's the only, I don't know how to do nothing like somebody else. It's got to be organic. And one thing I did feel, television music, especially back then, was like very bland. Here's a chase scene. No, man. I'm bringing in a soprano sax with, and if it's a dramatic scene, scoring it, like I was doing Spartacus. I treated every episode like it was a film.
Is that music? Is that music compiled on CD or any form like that?
A lot of it is on YouTube now.
Yeah. Because
people have, over the years, it's became like this underground classic, and people like the performances. I mean, we had everybody on there, man. And the score, and just the texture and the tapestry of the score. A lot of people, then and now. You know what? Like everything, if it means something to me, it's because it can stand the test of time. I can sit back and put the closer I get to you on and still feel cool, you know?
Definitely.
Yeah, the truth don't have no date, you know?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. It's timeless music. Something else came to mind.
Go ahead, man. I'll wait.
Oh, yeah. So sampling. That was kind of a controversial thing with you, at least in the beginning. Where are you now with it? And, you know, what, you know, tell us about, you know, how you reacted. You know, the most famous example, of course, is when Biggie did Juicy, but there's a lot of other sampling too. So
yeah, like tons. Okay, now let me give you what actually happened. Like as you said earlier in the introduction, I spent 20 years doing a political talk show co-hosted by this guy Bob Slade and Bob Pickett and myself for 20 years. It was a political talk show. Before joining that, Bob Slade would have this thing on called Year in Review, where there'd be a panel, about 5 or 6 of us, and we talk about what happened that year, like, you know, the Sunday before the changing of the year, you know. And I mentioned in that conversation, I said, this has only happened to me a couple of times, where I'm driving and something came on the radio, I had to pull over and wait till it was finished because it blew me away. And I said what it was a song called Bring the Noise by this group called Public Enemy. As the conversation evolved, I said, sampling is cool as a pit stop, but you shouldn't live there. I said, if you want to practice, if you want to be a lawyer, you got to know something about what? Law. You want to be a doctor, you got to know something about what? Medicine. You want to be a plumber, you got to know something about what? Plumbing. So why should you be in music and don't think you got to know something about music? So why does that become a deficiency to be knowledgeable? And I never was against sampling. First of all, that would have been hypocritical. What I said was at that time, I was against people sampling other people's music and not paying them. That was the crux of the conversation. And Daddy-O of Stetsasonic heard that interview. Now, he and I become lovely friends since then, but he took that part, he sampled my whole stuff, piece of my statement, and they did a record called Talking All That Jazz. That's about me. But that was my point. Nobody was getting paid. So people were sampling James Brown. That argument didn't happen until De La Soul sampled Opaque, okay? And then they started sampling other pop artists, and then the attention came to it. Steely Dan, Opaque. And then it became an issue. But I made it an issue when I was seeing people sampling Sly Stone and all that, and nobody was getting paid. Now, Biggie. I was doing New York Undercover, it was the first year. And Andre Harrell said, look, man, Puffy wants to talk to you. So Puffy was in the building. Puffy comes up to him and says, hey, Puffy. He said, I got this artist I want you to meet. His name is Biggie Smalls. So I said, yeah, I'm here. Let him. He opens the door. Biggie comes in. We hug. Beautiful, man. Me and Puffy sat down and worked out a deal, a page and a half. You get $1, I get 50 cents. That's all I ever said. Puffy, out of everybody, was like, boom, made sense. So that whole thing about, I love what Biggie did. And if Biggie hadn't done that, we wouldn't have carried on into the next generations. My favorite remake of it was Keisha Cole and Missy, called Let It Go. But we've had about 70-something samples of Juicy. Wow. But that was not my argument, not the sampling. It was like cats need to start also knowing how to play or bring cats in. And you see that now. You see that now happening. Cats have a DJ with live players. You know, Jay-Z's doing it. And I also raised this argument. Not argument, question. I love the Roots, Philadelphia Cats. But why are they the only black band in the last 30 years? Why is that? Black bands have been pretty much eliminated. R&B and funk is predicated on bands. We always had great singers. Where's the Cool in the Gangs? Where's the Earth, Wind and Fires? Where's the P-Funks? Where's the Ohio Players? You Where's Slave? Where's Mtume? Bands. Our music grew out of bands. Always had great singers. You know, the self-contained band, starting with Sly. I mean, for black folks, you know, there was always self-contained bands in pop, you know. But Sly was the first black self-contained band. Before that, the only reference for funk was Godfather, James Brown. But his band was made up of jazz musicians. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So do you think we're going to see that turn around at all, and we're going to get some more band?
You know what? I know they're out there, but that leads us into another conversation. What the hell is a record company now? You know, A&R. What has happened that our stuff gets watered down? And I'm going to take you through a real quick thing. The destruction of singing groups started with, for me, you go back to the lead singers being taken out of the groups, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You take Lionel Richie out of the Commodores, what happened to the Commodores? Take Michael Jackson out of the Jackson 5, what happens to them? You take Jeffrey Osborne out of LTD, take Shaka out of Rufus. All the black bands, but you know, Phil Collins can still be in Genesis and do a solo. You know, the other bands can do it, but something happens, like it became the destruction of the black singing groups. And now we've absolutely watched the destruction of a black self-contained band. Not that they don't exist, they're not signed. I know we got a little, you know, it's on track, but it's a conversation that needs to be had, and nobody talks about that.
That's really interesting to me.
Think about it.
It's really interesting too, the way that kind of evolved, because originally, you know, the black bands didn't have really often lead singers, and then they did, and then the lead singers got taken out, and now the bands have disappeared.
Diana Ross. I mean, go on. Take what happens to the group. But on the pop side, their lead singers could do solo albums and still be in the band. For us, it became the destruction, and now we have an absolute absence of black self-contained bands. And that's what pressed our music.
Well, since you brought that up, I'll throw something else at you.
Okay.
And that is that the dichotomy too that exists with, you know, like rock bands are able to have these long extended careers where they're basically continuing to do the same brand and style of music successfully, but you don't see that kind of longevity and that ongoing genre type music by the black bands. I mean, why, you know, why don't you have more funk bands today when you still have rock bands like your AC/DCs, your ZZ Tops, your Aerosmiths, still doing that kind of music, and it's still good? Why aren't there, you know, black bands that are still doing that?
Because I have a saying, you know, that's a great question, man. And I've thought about it greatly. We have this affinity for what I call Mac music. You know, 5 million served, very few satisfied. It's like, it's not an appreciation for the gourmet. And R&B has been so, as we talked about, watered down. A respect for originality has been diminished greatly. You know, if I walked in with a demo of our band and it sounded like Earth, Wind & Fire, I've been thrown out of the building. Originality is not held to the same level that it used to be. Also, we destroy this stuff real quick. It's almost, black music now is more predicated on hit records than hit careers. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, you don't see the generational exchange. If we went to see the Grateful Dead, you saw grandparents, parents, and grandchildren. There's a continuity and respect that goes down. And one of the problems that we had, this is within the black community, is something I call the breakdown of the cultural continuity between older blacks and younger blacks when it came to hip hop and rap. This whole notion, that's not music. And then the younger kids are saying, well, what y'all was doing ain't music, even though we sampling it. But you know, so you had this dichotomy. And no other ethnic group suffered that. Nobody's gonna question the validity of the Beatles. It also happened with remixes. Why does every black record need a remix? You know, what's the remix on ZZ Top? What's the remix on any great performance? So again, originality becomes diminished. You know, and I also and look at that. I'm not saying there's not great music out here, but also something else set in, which I call the glorification of mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, something's great because it sounds like something. It happened in jazz. Somebody's great because they sound like Miles, or maybe he can play just like Coltrane. I don't care about that. Who are you? What's your signature?
So with that, is there anyone out there today that's come to your attention that you think is
Kendrick Lamar? You know, in that generation, Kendrick Lamar kills me. I love the passion, and I love what he's doing. I think he stirred up the pot. He stirred. There's always got to be a pot stirrer, you know. And now, if you ask me in jazz, that'd be harder for me to say, because I played with Sonny Rollins. I played with Woody Shaw. I played with Miles. You know, if I didn't play with him, I grew up listening to him.
Well, the whole Quiet Storm format really kind of took the wind out of the sails of that whole genre.
Yeah, yeah. How do you feel about it? What do you think of it?
Of what?
Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
No, I mean, well, the one great thing is the internet now. I mean, you can find, you know, good music out there. So even though the labels aren't bringing it to you, you can find it. You can seek it out and find it. But you know, that golden era and these great times of glory, unfortunately, are probably not going to see again. But we have to pass it along. You know, that's why I do this show. And that's why, you know, with my son, I have a 13-year-old son.
Oh, great.
He gets to hear it all. You know, you know, he's going to get it. So we have to pass it down because they're not going to get it otherwise.
No. There's this great line out of a Sly Stone song. It says, if you can remember, you cannot forget. Because if you ain't got it now, then you got it to get. You know what I mean? So this is part of that legacy, what we're doing right now and what you've been doing.
Yeah.
You know, documenting the information.
I wanted to ask you, Mtume, you know, for neophytes, how would you recommend somebody sort of expose themselves and get into jazz? Because it's a bit of an acquired taste.
Oh, no. It's more than a bit. It's a big bite, you know. I would not be predisposed to saying, go back to the beginning. You know, you go listen to Bird and, you know, and those cats on Train, because that might be a bit hard to digest. I think if I was turning somebody on to develop, you know, an appetite, I tell them to listen to first Kind of Blue, because for whatever reason, that record, well, first of all, it's the biggest selling jazz album ever. But the fact that on that record, Miles went into the modes as opposed to a bunch of chord changes. Then I tell them to listen to Sketches in Spain. And then I tell them to listen to A Love Supreme. Start there. Then you can work back to Night in Tunisia and, you know, and all the classic stuff. And listen to some Lester Young. Because what people, I think, especially young people, find hard to digest, if it's anything that doesn't have vocals, you know. So jazz is like instrumental music, but I would try to introduce it to them with some music that's not as complicated as Giant Steps and, you know, Love Supreme, you know, Miles, Tamaba Jamal, you know.
Yeah.
But that's what I would do, man. I would, you know, I used to take castor oil. Take the castor oil, but put a little orange juice in it. You know what I mean? So it can go down a little easier, and then expand it.
Yeah, sometimes you have to take baby steps.
There you go.
Yeah, digestible bites.
Yes, sir. I agree.
And then once you get it, you know.
Oh, look, it's over. Because, you know, once you get a taste and develop an appreciation for jazz, you never can go back to BS. Because to me, jazz is the highest form of intellect, and intellect is the highest form of jazz. I don't know any dumb jazz artists or jazz greats. You know, they were all like brilliant cats and funny.
So as we're talking now, you mentioned you're 70 now, you know, and I mean, you look great. You're doing great. So that's very nice to see. Do you have any sort of like regrets or a bucket list kind of thing, or where are you at with that?
No, man. No, I don't actually. It's something I did entertain. No. I mean, like I said, man, as you see with this conversation, you know how many years we've already talked about this conversation has encompassed 50 years of music for me.
So what are you mentioned maybe doing the TV show was your highlight, possibly, but what are you most proud of? Would it be that?
Yeah. You know, because I had already done the songwriting and the production. Scoring is a different animal altogether. You know, how do you put music to a scene? And the trick in scoring is always to not let the score get in the way of the dialogue. And it's a different tapestry. And I'm down there by myself, just, you know, okay, put a scene up. And then you know, but I'm drawing on all those experiences that I had, man. You know, that's all the jazz, the funk, the R&B, that's all that, man, the pop. And I'm just like, you know what? I thought about this. I would need something that excites my imagination. I would love to do a Bonnie Raitt or something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's, you know, because I've got a lot of other influences, you know, that I didn't get a chance to delve into musically.
So but, if Bonnie or her handlers are watching.
Oh no, yeah, well, no, you know, but there's some great artists out there, you know. But as far as songs, I would say the closer, because that's, you know, you're the first. I mean, on that level, and then of course Juicy Fruit, which I felt kind of changed the direction of where everything was going, you know, sound wise. That's all I'm talking about. And that, if it hit or not, but I knew this was something different.
Yeah, now I've had guys like Tom Brown on and Kevin Toney and asked them.
Yeah, I just watched the Kevin Toney interview, the 3 parts today.
Oh yeah, do you know him at all?
And Tuatha went to when I said Hot Tea, they went to Howard together.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. He's an entertaining guy.
Yeah, great musician.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I asked them, and I'll throw it at you. Funk and jazz. Mm-hmm. What is the common thread there? Because it's such honest, real, creative music, and there seems to be a close symbiotic relationship between them because there's so many jazz guys that went and did funk.
Yes.
Even, of course, Miles did funk. So
yes.
What is that binds them?
Truth. The truth. You can't fake what the George said, you can't fake the funk. Well, you damn sure can't fake jazz. Okay? Because if you can't handle the heat, they won't even let you in the kitchen. Forget, you know, get out of the kitchen. You wouldn't even get in. You know, but if I were to address your question, I would do it this way. And I often say this. In jazz, it's mastering complexity. In funk, it's mastering simplicity. How do I keep these few bars and this same beat interesting to you? And I said, once you reach the height of both of those, you understand simplicity. And that's what it is. So I've been the route of avant-garde jazz. I've been in the route of pure funk. It's simplicity. Because a lot of cats that come out of jazz don't have respect for the funk. Some funk cats really don't have respect for the jazz on the level it should be. I've been fortunate to have lived in both houses, man. And as you said, you touched on earlier, Kool and the Gang, man. Khalis took lessons from my father. He's a saxophonist, okay? Maurice White played with Ramsey Lewis. Ohio players with jazz cats. I mean, look, Bernie Worrell's a dear friend of mine. Bernie Worrell loved McCoy Tyner. Okay? Jazz, Pee Wee Ellis co-wrote Cold Sweat with James Brown. He was his band director. All jazz cats. And that connection, I'm glad we touched on that today. That connection has not been talked about enough. And why would it be jazz cats? And then you get gospel. Those are the three things that is just truth. You can't fake no gospel. If you open your mouth and it ain't there, if it don't touch me, it ain't happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the two things specifically about jazz and funk. The truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
Amen. And of course, Herbie's woven in between them all.
Herbie's done it all.
Yeah.
Herbie's done it all. But what did he start with? Okay?
Yeah.
Davis.
Yeah.
I mean, when he got national prominence. But he was doing Watermelon Man, Cantaloupe Island back in those. So Herbie was living in both houses. And then by the time he gets to Headhunters, it's all over.
Mm. Yeah, I love that stuff. Can't hear it enough. And that's, I mean, the really good stuff, you know, you never get tired of. It never gets played out. Some songs get played out. The classics, this great music, just can't.
Yeah, like I said, ain't no time on the truth, man. It don't get rusty. You know what I mean? And that's a fact. You put on a great record, man. Man, I put on Knee Deep now and go, damn. You know what I mean? One Nation. I mean, you know, I put on Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell. I mean, it's just all of it. It timeless is, I know, an overused phrase, but it's the truth. For me, timeless means it's the truth.
And that's why it's all truth and rhythm. So,
yes, sir.
So is there anything else that we didn't get into? I mean, we could talk politics, but we're not going to get into that on this show. But is there anything else that we didn't get into that you want to get out there as a message, Mtume?
No, I think we covered. I hope we covered everything you wanted to ask.
Oh, absolutely. I just want to know what's next for you. What are you doing now? You mentioned about a new project with Tawatha.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty much it. And absorbing the new music that's coming out of the new generation. You know, I think you only get old when you stop learning and stop having an appreciation, you know, for what the new generation is bringing, you know. And like I said, man, knowing when it's time to leave. But as I say that, like I said, but I might wake up tomorrow and hear something and go, oh, okay. I don't think you never unlearn how to ride a bike. You know what I mean? It's just that when you feel like riding again. But other than that, I'm really cool, enjoying, you know, the best of what is coming. You know.
You still got your percussion chops and your.
Man, I haven't touched it. You know, no, I can sit there. Yes, you know, no. But you know, it's all here. It's all here.
Yeah.
It's all here. You know, it's all here, man. You know, you don't unlearn that.
Yeah. Well, definitely look for that Tawatha project.
Oh yeah, man. Soon come.
And where were the contact info for people to keep up with James Mtume?
Facebook. Just got on that a couple weeks ago because you know you can't really find me because I haven't until recently. But yeah, you can go on Facebook, James Mtume.
Yeah, well, you got a good website though too.
You know, and we're just completing the work. I've also decided I've been turning it down for about 5 years, but Unsung. So we're finishing up in Unsung.
Oh, great. Great. We'll look for that. All right. Well, then with that,
hey,
we're
man,
gonna wrap up this edition.
Been an absolute pleasure, man. I appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you. Just hang tight. We'll do this outro, and then
yes, sir.
We'll settle things up. So a huge thanks to my very special guest, Mr. James Mtume, one of the most accomplished jazz, funk, and R&B innovators of his generation. Thanks again so much for sharing your time and experiences, and a sincere thank you to our listeners and viewers. Be sure to look up upcoming episodes of Truth and Rhythm. You catch up on past ones as Mtume has, which is great. At funkinstuff.net, on YouTube, iTunes, and other leading podcast providers. Want to hear from you? Email me, ScottG at funkinstuff.net. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, who else you want to see. And until next time, on behalf of James Mtume, this is Scott Dr. J.X. Goldfine saying, keep on vibrating to the rhythm of the one.
Word.